Well, welcome to Purely His. I am Matt. This is my wife, Michelle Caswell. We are the founders of Purely His Ministries. And we want to welcome you to your first night as a member of your Purely His group. You probably have a lot of questions. You're probably very curious to know what kind of group it is that you've just signed up for. And our purpose for this video is to introduce ourselves to you, to give you our background, to tell you a little bit about ourselves, and also to answer perhaps some of these questions that you're curious to know about what it is that you've just committed to.
Our groups are based on a 5-step process, and the 5 steps are your story, his story, get unstuck, walk it out, and take someone with you. And one of the things this is not a Bible study, this is not church, and this is not a typical support group. So even though you're going to come into this group with a bunch of issues, maybe you know you have them or you don't know you have them, but we're not going to sit there and just talk about all those issues or talk about the symptoms, as we call them. We're going to talk about the root cause of those issues. We're going to point it out. We're going to help you then rip it out so you can be off and running doing what God's called you to do. And the whole purpose of Purely His is to help you go all in with Jesus and get unstuck from anything that's in the way of that, so that you can be off and doing what God's called you to do.
What separates Purely His from other support type groups is that we don't just deal with the symptoms, we deal with the root of those symptoms, what caused those symptoms. And that's what we focus on removing, so that when you remove the root cause, those symptoms will go away and you'll be able to get unstuck. One of the important keys to being a member of a Purely His group is to be transparent. We encourage all group members to come as they are. Bring your problems with you. We're going to help you work through those problems together as a group. Not only are the leaders going to help you work through those problems, but you're going to find that as you go through the curriculum, the guys and gals in the group are going to bond, and they're going to become your brothers, they're going to become your sisters, and they're going to help you get through whatever your struggle is as well. Michelle and I are just ordinary people. We're not paid actors. We are not counselors. We're just two ordinary people who love Jesus and enjoy helping others get unstuck from the traumas of their past. In being transparent, we want to share with you who we are and where we come from. Michelle, you tell us a little bit about where you come from and what you've overcome.
So the big part about being part of Purely His, he mentioned the word transparency. So we believe that as leaders, we need to drop our mask and keep it real first, so that we can set an example for you. And so where I come from is raised in a Christian home till I was 6 years old, and all hell broke loose in our home. And so you go from being a Christian and a daddy's girl and loving Jesus and being able to hear his voice, and starting all these little businesses when I was little, and I just had all this wonder and all this awe. And then when the divorce took place, then I started being molested, and then a little bit later on, then I was raped a few times, and then it's just one thing after another compounded and covered up the real me. And then I just started really acting out, getting fights in school and dropping out of school, getting pregnant as a teenager, getting into drugs, being really promiscuous and all of that. And it just kept going on and on and on. And really what the root cause of my issues was the divorce and the pain that happened from that. And I became everything that I said I would never become. And I was just so ashamed and so disappointed in myself when I finally came to the Lord, when I finally hit rock bottom again. And then that's when I finally made the choice to go all in with Jesus. And once I did, that's when my complete life changed. And I got off the drugs, I got off the alcohol, I stopped, sleeping around. I actually became a good mom. I had a clear head. I got rid of the mental illnesses and everything else that came with that lifestyle. And now I'm actually walking out the calling that God has on my life. And it's never too late. It doesn't matter how far you've gone or crossed that line of no return, because there is no line of no return. And so now here I am running this ministry. I get to be married to this awesome guy and get the forgiveness of my children. And it's just amazing to be able to get unstuck from those things of my past and be off doing what God's called me to do and actually enjoy life and not just survive through life.
So I want to share with you a little bit about my story. It's completely different from what Michelle's testimony was. About the only thing that we have in common is that we both grew up in a Christian home. I had a very happy, healthy household that I grew up in. My parents remained married for 43 years before my dad passed away. I have a big brother who was also my best friend growing up. I had a really good childhood. I was very active in the church, in my youth group. I was on fire for the Lord. I went on missions trips to Mexico and to Utah with my youth group. And I was very on fire for the Lord until I stumbled in the area of sexual sin when I was 19 years old. My reaction to having stumbled in that area, it was shocking to me, because it was always my hope to have the kind of relationship that my parents did. I wanted to save myself sexually for my wife. And when I stumbled in that area, I was very disappointed in myself. I felt like a hypocrite as a Christian, and I more or less took myself and put myself on the shelf. I felt like if I continued to be involved in ministry, that I would be doing so hypocritically. And that's how I led most of my adult life, just on the shelf. I still went to church. I still enjoyed going to church, but I didn't want to become actively involved in ministry anymore because of this guilt that I felt. My adult life, I got married young, have 2 beautiful daughters. Life just kind of went on until tragedy struck when I was in my early 30s. I lost my father to cancer, and I lost my marriage all within the same month. And it felt like the world just came crashing down. Not only did I lose my dad, who was my hero, and I lost my marriage, I lost a lot of weight, I lost a lot of self-confidence. It was then that I discovered that I really needed the Lord, and I clung to Him like a shipwrecked sailor clings to a buoy out in the ocean. I felt really desperate. I felt like there was nowhere else that I could turn, and I learned a lot through that. I learned that the Lord was trustworthy, but I still felt the guilt from my past. I still didn't want to become involved in ministry. I re-entered into marriage pretty quickly after my first divorce. I was still unhealthy, and I remarried an unhealthy woman, an emotionally unhealthy woman, and that was just disastrous. It created a lot of problems in marriage. It created problems for my children. They suffered a lot through that poor decision that I had made to remarry. That was a short-lived marriage. It only lasted about a year before it ended in divorce, unfortunately. But what I found is that through my mistakes, through all of my sin and my past, the Lord was really gracious to me. The Lord still knew my heart. He still knew what I wanted. He knew that I wanted to be in a committed, married, holy relationship. And I feel very blessed that He provided Michelle to be my wife. She's blessed me a lot, being my partner in life, my partner in crime. Despite all my mistakes, the Lord still blessed me. And through Michelle, She's helped me realize that I am capable of forgiving myself, and that is how I became unstuck. Not only did I have to forgive myself from my past, but I had to accept the Lord's forgiveness for my mistake as well. Michelle and I are just two ordinary people who made the decision to go all in with Jesus and create this ministry. As you've heard from our stories, we come from different pasts, just like all of you come from different pasts. It doesn't matter where you come from. We're all headed in the same direction, and that is to become purely His.